guys, as you can see from the video, my father has a very hard time controlling himself. He's very expressive and vocal, and the difference between him and most other people is at any given time, at any moment, and in any place, he could basically say some things that are a little bit inappropriate. Nothing insulting, but the timing of it. Like, there's certain times when he should not be talking or shouldn't be saying this or that, but he does. And some people, they don't understand. And their first reaction, of course, which is understandable, is the nerve of this guy, or who does he think he is, or how dare you say that, or, you know, stuff like that. But I've had that happen on many occasions, but I tell them what's going on, and they understand, and their initial reaction quickly changes like that, and they have a whole different perspective on why he's the way he is and what's going on and stuff like that. I have one story in particular that's kind of funny, but it's a classic example of how he has this uncontrollable behavior and will act out at certain times when it's not appropriate. But let me tell you the story. Years ago, I was raised a Catholic, but years ago, I'd have to say 30 years ago, but we used to go to church quite often on Sundays. My mother would make sure that because we would go to Catholic school, Catholic high school, and so my mother and my two brothers, we would all go to church on Sunday. And my dad wouldn't go. He wasn't really a church-going guy, and so he would sit on the couch, and on Sunday, he would watch his Three Stooges and NFL films.
It was here, in one of the season's most physical encounters, the initial battle lines were drawn for Super Bowl 15.
Stuff like that. It was very normal for him to be doing that on Sunday morning while we're getting dressed and going off to church. But he has gone to church a few times, and in those few times, he remembers there was one part of the Mass where when the priest stands up and opens his arms, the priest will say, "Forever and ever.
All glory and honor is yours forever and ever."
Well, that jingle, it stayed with him then, and it still stays with him today. But what he would say is, when my mom would say, "Ken Sr., you need to go to church. Why don't you come to church with us?" He would say this to her. Instead of "forever, forever," he would go, "Whatever, whatever," kind of making a joke of it, and he would laugh, and she would look at him like, "Oh, Ken Sr., stop it." So we would go to church, and he'd be at home. Well, years later, after he was diagnosed with dementia, at the age of 63, 64, I remember we talked about it. My mom was like, "Should we take him to church? What do you think, Ken?" I think, "Yeah, why not? Let's see how it goes." So we take him, and we're not even thinking about anything. Just we're hoping that everything will work out. Anyway, we're all in our pew. We were seated. We're about maybe 20 minutes into the Mass. And there's got to be almost, I'd say, 100 people in this church. So everybody's like pretty much packed in. They're close, and you know, you can hear one another if you start talking. Anyway, we get to the part of the Mass where the priest stands up and he puts his arms out and he says, "Forever and ever." And my dad, like that, something just triggered in his mind. And he said immediately after that, he goes real loud too. He's like, "Whatever, whatever." You should have seen the look on my mother's face. Her entire face turned red. She turned her head, looked at my dad, and she was like, "Ken Sr., stop it." And I'm like, I didn't know what to say. And I was just like, Dad. And I looked at him, and he looked at me with the biggest grin. Happy as hell, like he did something really good. He was proud of it. He looked at me like, I did good, didn't I? He had that look on his face. I'll never forget that look. But, oh my God, when people turned their heads, they were looking at us. I could hear a couple saying, why did he say that? What's wrong with him? And shh, all this stuff. But that was the last time we took him to church. Sometimes you learn the hard way. But that's one of many, many stories that I could share with you about how uncontrollable my father is at certain times when out in public, or anywhere for that matter. But there are some funny moments, and I try to focus on those moments, and I try to spin it and not be so embarrassed about what he does and why he does what he does in public, but just accept it and know that it's not his fault. And if somebody has a problem with it and they want to make a big deal of it, it's their fault. They should understand, especially after you explain what's going on. Just nobody should take any offense to this whatsoever. And you shouldn't either, as a caregiver, as a loved one. And I'm not embarrassed by my father at all. I used to be when I was younger. But you know what's funny? When I was embarrassed of certain things, there was a lot of inhibitions. We had inhibitions. We had insecurities. We were not being truly who we wanted to be, and we were suppressing that. Although this is extreme, there's some goodness and some truth to some of this, and it's who he is and who we all are. But we don't need to be this expressive in any given scenario or situation or environment. That's the only downfall to this. We have no control. But like I said, I'm okay with how he acts. I've learned to accept it and embrace it. In the beginning, I was a little embarrassed by it, and so was my mother. And even certain times, it's a struggle because, well, it's inappropriate. But you have to get over it, man. You have to get over it and try to somehow, some way accept it, put a positive spin on it, and find some enjoyment in it. Nowadays, when I'm out with my father in public and I see that he has his eyes set on someone or something, I know he's about to go over and say something. Sometimes I just let it happen because I'm more interested in the reaction of the person with whom he's speaking with. And I get a little enjoyment out of that. But in the end, it all comes together and we all get a laugh, including my father. Not at him, but kind of with him in the situation. But there are certain things you can do to handle it and try to make the most of it and not be so embarrassed by it or feel insulted. Because it's only going to be taxing on you if you try to control his every move. You try to control your loved one's every move. I mean, there's certain things you need to control. But try to take the leash off a little bit. Because, like I said, it's only going to be taxing on you, stressful, and you don't need that. There's nothing you can do. Just try to enjoy the moment and make the best of it without putting too much pressure on yourself and your loved one. Because it's just going to make things that much harder for everybody. So that's my rant for today. It's my story for today.